Strange Shadows, a Clark Ashton Smith podcast.
It was on Spanish Mountain, where he had climbed from Donna to escape the society of his fellow campers, that Lemuel Sakis first met the people of the planet Mloch. Since he was far from being an expert mountaineer, he had not cared to assail the crowning peaks of the long Samba Ridge, but had contented himself with the lower, more accessible eastern terminus. From this, he could look down on the waters of Frog Lake, lying dark and still at the bottom of a bare declivity. Among volcanic-looking boulders, well out of the wind that swept the upper ridge, he seated himself in morose contemplation, while the mountain shadows lengthened, shaken out like lazy wings, and a pale light crept eastward on the waters of black opal below. The vastness of the solitude, its grim and craggy grandeur, began to have a soothing effect upon Sakis, and the human trivialities and banalities that had driven him to flight assumed their proper insignificance in the mighty perspectives on which he peered. He had seen no one, not even a sheep herder or fisherman, in his climb through the forested ravines and up the sunflower-covered slopes. He was startled as well as annoyed when a pebble, loosened as if by some unheard footfall, clattered past him and went over the precipice. Someone else had climbed the mountain, and his misanthropic aversion rose in a gall-like bitterness as he turned to survey the intruder.
Hello friends, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for Season 4, Episode 3 of Strange Shadows, the Clark Ashton Smith podcast. The voice you just heard there was friend of the show, Simon Frazier Nash, reading the opening paragraph of today's story. I'm one of your hosts, Rob Poynton.
And I'm the other one, Tim Mendees. Yes, we are firmly back in science-fiction territory this week with today's story, A Star Change.
Yes, and it's, well, I'm sort of in two minds about this story because I think language-wise it's got some really great writing in it.
Yeah.
Again, Smith at the height of his writing power, I think. But plot-wise, it went a little bit flat for me.
Yeah, it falls into a lot of the traps that a lot of Smith's science fiction for me does. It's kind of very similar to another one, and I can't remember which one it is, where, you know, it's very similar beats, isn't it? But there's only so much you can do with that kind of thing. So
yes, yeah. But before we get into all that interplanetary goodness, just a couple of quick announcements. Of course, we have mentioned before the Smith Circle convention that's going on in Auburn, January the 10th, 2026, organised by our friend Nils Hedgelin. And Nils has just confirmed that amongst the panellists who'll be attending are S.T. Joshi and Ron Hilger. So that really is shaping up to be an excellent event. As well as the guests and panellists, there's going to be arts displays, there's going to be traders, and it's being held, of course, in the Carnegie Library in Auburn, the actual library that Smith himself attended.
Yes, it appeared in one of his stories as well, didn't it, I believe?
Yes, it did. Yeah, The Devotee of Evil, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
And I think we've got some literary news as well.
Indeed, yes. I've just had a novel come out. It's a new novel. It's ridiculously hard to categorize. It's what I decided if Mad Max or Escape from New York was set in Britain, and instead of like hot rods and all that, it was mopeds and tractors. So it was basically like a crap British version of those old dystopian cyberpunk movies with tentacles.
Oh, nice.
With more eldritch abominations than you could shake a stick at. It's called Shadow of Chaos. They might give you a little clue as to what's going on there. And it's out now through Erie River Publishing. You can find it for, you know, the usual places, Amazon and all that kind of stuff.
Brilliant. And we've just put a video out this week for the Innsmouth Literary Festival. We've put up a little trader preview, just some of the traders you'll be able to see on the day, 27th of September. At the King's House in Bedford. And we're pleased to say a lot of our traders from last year are returning, and we've got some new traders as well. And one thing we like with the ILF is we get a real good mix of traders, and it's all people who create their own art. So whether that's paintings or miniatures or authors, artists of all different types. So it's a really nice eclectic mix. it's a different feel, and when you buy something from the person who created it, that's a nice connection, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's better than like some faceless corporation, you know.
Yes, Nyarlathotep Industries.
Indeed. Yeah, have you already read my book?
I just know how your mind works. So mine works in very similar ways, especially when we get into gutter territory. But
yes, well,
there'll be more of that later on, dear listener, as you can imagine.
Yes.
Okay, shall we start with our publication history then?
Indeed. Yeah. Well, Smith first came up with the brief outline for the story in 1930 because he came up with the concept sort of first. The concept is basically a man taken to an alien world who suffers from the strange impressions to which he is subjected and undergoes for relief an operation at the hands of his hosts, which transforms all his sensory reactions so that a new world becomes tolerable. When he returns to Earth, he sees an utterly alien and terrifying world and dies mad in a hospital, his case having been diagnosed as DTs, or delirium tremens. But that he sort of sat on that idea for 2 years. After writing this brief synopsis, he sent a letter to H.P. Lovecraft on October the 24th, 1930, where he further expounded on this concept. I think there are huge possibilities in this if it is carefully and graphically worked out. The change in the feeling of time, movement, geometry, the monstrous transmutations and amplifications and distortions and combinations of visual, oral, and other images could be dealt with in minutely realistic style. For instance, there might be an extension or combination of tactility with visions which could cause acute torture from certain terrestrial images. The tale is so damnably possible when you think of what a little fever or a dose of hashish can do to one's sensory apparatus, but it will be hard to write and harder still to sell. Yes, and he turned out to be quite prophetic in those words.
Well, to be fair, when it comes to Farnsworth, it seems that most of Smith's stuff was hard to sell, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it's quite interesting. Like I say, the story took a back seat for 2 years. He eventually completed it around July the 4th, 1932. Now, he wrote 2 back-to-back letters to August Derleth about his plan of attack regarding publishing. The first one is June the 28th, 1932. I'm doing a high-grade science fiction tale at present, A Star Change, which deals analytically with abstruse problems of sense perception, etc. It may be eligible for amazing, but probably won't have enough plot or excitement for the others. Now, in the next one, which followed up, which was July the 10th, 1932, I finished The Star Change, which is high-grade scientific fiction, and I'm trying it on right out of curiosity, though I think its ultimate destination, if any, will be wonder stories or amazing. I've also sent Wright a newly finished medieval, The Disinterment of Venus. Now, it turns out, again, he was very prophetic on this, because firstly, Wright rejected the story, and the reason he rejected it, I quote, was it was too descriptive and actionless. So, there you go. Now, Amazing Stories held on to it for 5 months before rejecting it.
Wow.
It's annoying, isn't it?
That is.
And it was finally picked up by Wonder Stories, where it was published in the May 1933 issue under the title The Visitors from Moloch.
Okay, another title change, which we've seen before.
Yep. This was Gurn's back again, changing the title without Smith's knowledge. He did it a lot. And now I'd be proper cheesed off if somebody did that to me.
Yeah.
Especially as my stories, a lot of them are puns or have some double meaning that actually links into the story. If somebody did it to me, I'd be really hacked off.
Well, totally a title. It's like a song title or anything. It's something that thought goes into generally, and it will bear some relation to something. So just to stick something on it, like this is a song, called "Leave It Alone." No, it's "Let It Be," because you see that title, yeah.
Yeah.
Very annoying.
Now, Smith was supposed to have been paid $50, but he had to resort to legal action to actually collect the money.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Now, we're going to delve into that in full detail. We may end up doing a bonus episode on it when we get to the story, The Dweller in the Gulf. It is quite the debacle, and if we go into it now, we won't have time for the story.
Okay, yeah, that's nice. Good idea. We'll save that for a bonus then.
Yeah.
And it is interesting as a writer now, or anyone who's involved in any form of publishing now, that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Isn't it? I mean, now you don't even get paid anything.
Yes, that's happened to me more times than I care to mention.
All right, so before we get into the story proper, let's choose our favourite words. Now, I didn't think there was a huge amount of this, despite there being some great writing. We're certainly not in Baroque territory so much here, but there were a couple of things. I think I knew the meaning of most of these, but I've got one or two favourites. I'm going to start with vocable, which is, I describe it as it's a sound that is not a word, but has meaning. And I actually had a prime example of this a couple of weekends ago. Lara, my wife, her brother came round with his wife and their two kids. One of them's a teenager, I guess he's about 15. And there was discussion about going to the theatre. And they said to their son, "Oh, yes, because we took you to the theatre, didn't we, to see whatever the play was. What did you think of it?" His response was a total vocable. It was, which I said was one of the best reviews I've ever heard.
To be fair, I do that. What did you think of that film?
Yes, so there we are. That is a vocable.
No, right, nice. There we go. Yeah, there was a lot we've already had. There was a few that I know I've already picked out. So I tried to stay away from those. So I've gone for Sisyphean, which is a task that can never be completed and comes from the myth of Sisyphus, who was forced to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity.
Yes, there's another one that I'm sure we've mentioned before and always sounds marvellous. Lugubrious.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning sad. I always think Frankie Howard for some reason when that word comes up.
Yeah, it is a very Frankie Howard word, isn't it?
It's a Frankie Howard face.
Yeah. I'm going to go with littorals. Not literals as in literal, as in littoral, which is a region lying along a shore, or the littoral zone in ecology.
Ah. And I'm going to choose this. It's a two-word, so it's a phrase. Uncongenial exigency, which uncongenial is not friendly and exigency is urgent need. So that almost sounds like someone's being a little bit pressured into doing something, perhaps. That kind of slight hint of...
frog marched.
Yeah, frog marched, yeah. Which is quite appropriate as we're going to be at Frog Lake.
Indeed, yeah. My next one, I'm pretty sure we've had it, but the reason I'm reading this is because the definition never ceases to make me laugh, because it's the most torturous way of describing what it is you could possibly think of. It's one of those things, it's like, does it make a movie sound really boring with a tagline, sort of like mild stomach upset leads to a parasitic, the thing for Alien, right? It's that. The word is cancellation. Okay, which, here we go. Are you ready for this?
Go on. Defensive
or decorative parapets with regularly spaced notches.
Wow.
Battlements. You mean battlements, right?
Yeah, that kind of sucks. I always think of those sort of words. Yeah, crenellations, cussellations, gollyards. There's so many great words, and they always take me back to those sort of 1940s swashbuckling films, Robin Hood and all that stuff.
Errol Flynn.
Yeah, sword fights on the battlements, Basil Rathbone and all that stuff. Yeah,
Cyrano de Bergerac.
Yes, and they reduce it to that meaning.
Yeah. It just makes me chuckle. Oh, I've got one more to start. I like it. Lethe, which is a river in Hades that when drank, made the souls of the dead forget life on earth.
Yes, he likes his Hadean rivers, doesn't
He
he?
does. He does.
We get Phlegethon that cropped up last time, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, Greek myth is quite a wellspring to draw from, isn't it? For Smith,
It is.
there's quite a lot of Greek references. Well, Sisyphean.
Exactly. Yeah.
So a star change. I think we can put this in the Alban oeuvre, can't we? This one.
Kind of. Yeah.
Because although it's sci-fi, it does start. Well, I say it starts locally to Smith. I'm having a bit of trouble with the geography here. We're going to need to enlist the help of Niels, I think, for this one, because we have talk of Spanish Mountain, Donna, and Frog Lake. So, of course, I looked all of these up. Now, as far as I could see, and I could be totally wrong on this, Spanish Mountain is near Fresno, and it's over 100 miles south of Auburn. Donna, which I think is a sort of ski resort type place and mountain.
On a summit. Yeah.
Yeah. That's close to Frog Lake.
Yeah.
But that is up not far from Auburn, across to the east, I think. So I don't know. Are there two Spanish mountains? Did Smith change the layout a little bit, or am I just totally useless at looking at maps?
Yeah, no, Frog Lake now is actually a private lake with views of Donna Summit and Donna Pass.
Right.
So Donna Pass will be known to a lot of people for the Donna Party, who it was named after, because those pioneers that were basically snowed in and resorted to cannibalism, some of them.
Oh, right. I hadn't made that connection at all.
Yeah.
See, my mind was working on something totally different. I was thinking if you went there for your holidays, would that be a Donna Summer?
Ooh. I thought you were going to mention kebabs, so
that was the other one, right? Yeah. That was the other one. There's got to be a little kebab stand. There's got to be Donna's, isn't there?
Donna's. Yeah.
And if the guy's name was Don, then it would be Don's. That'd be...
Oh, God, stop it! You give me a nosebleed.
So that's where we are anyway. We're up in the mountains. We're in California, and our protagonist is one Lemuel Sarkis. Lemuel's a biblical name, of course, but I thought I'd look up Sarkis because, of course, you think Andy Serkis, right, as soon as you hear that. Well, Sarkis is an Armenian Greek name meaning shepherd. So I thought that was quite kind of appropriate. This guy is wandering alone in the mountains, and he does talk about sheep herders a little bit later on. There's a mention of sheep herders and fishermen. So I thought that was a nice little tie-in there.
That's quite interesting.
And I like this guy already because I like the fact that he's come out to get away for people, but of course the place is heaving with campers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in fact, someone I know was talking about that the other day. They went to a particular place in Switzerland up in the mountains that's normally very quiet. And I don't know if it's become publicised, this place, because he said it was absolutely heaving with people. Which, you know, you go away for a bit of mountain solitude and there you are, you're part of the bustling throng. So, yeah, I quite empathise with Mr. Sarkis on this.
Yeah, this line I can completely identify with. Someone else had climbed the mountain and his misanthropic aversion rose in a gall-like bitterness as he turned to survey the intruder. I feel like that quite often. Usually when I've gone for a bit of quiet time, you know, lurking around a graveyard or something, and some numpty appears, usually waving a phone around or something. It's just like, bugger off.
So, yes, he's looking for some solitude. I suppose in a sense he does get that solitude, but in a way he could never imagine, because he is going to meet one of the inhabitants, or a few inhabitants, of the planet. Now, how are we pronouncing this? Mlock. Mlock. An Mlock is actually a rail fit-in for a gun.
Mlock. Yeah,
Moloch. Almost like Moloch.
Yeah.
Right? And I have to say, this is where Smith excels. This is where some of that excellent writing comes in, because as we often mention, Smith's aliens are really aliens. And I thought this was an amazing description. Each of the beings was about 4 feet high, with a somewhat doubtful division into head and body. Their formation was incredibly flat and two-dimensional, and they seemed to float rather than stand, as if swimming through the air. The upper division, which one accustomed to earthly physical structures would have taken for their head, was much larger than the lower and more rotund. It resembled the featureless disc of a moonfish and was fringed with numberless interbranching tendrils or feelers like a floral arabesque. The lower division suggested a Chinese kite. It was marked with unknown goblin features, some of which may have been eyes, of a peculiarly elongated and oblique sort. It ended in 3 broad streamer-like members subdividing into webby tassels that trailed on the ground but seemed wholly inadequate for the purpose of legs. I know what you're going to say.
What?
It's the actress, isn't it?
Webby tassels. I was actually going to say, it wasn't Webby tassels on stage with poddy fronds.
They were a great double act.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a bit odd, isn't it? You're up climbing a mountain trying to get away from people. You hear a noise, you look round, and there's these 2 magnificent creatures.
Yeah.
Beautiful description, I think, and again, very imaginative.
Very much so. And in the very next bit, it shows off something else that Smith is very good at, that he does a lot. And it's one of the things that I think really puts his writing apart, is his use of colour and things like that. Because here, the coloration of these beings baffled Sarkis. He received alternate impressions of opal shot blackness, elusive greyness, and blood bright violet.
Nice.
It's very evocative, isn't it? It's so you put that together with the fronds and the Chinese fan and all these, because he's described all these wonderful things in ways that you can kind of put together in your head.
Yeah.
Which is that's quite a skill. You know, because describing the indescribable is something that we've all struggled with at some point, right?
Well, yeah. And it is that nice, in a way, Lovecraftian method as well, of you can see bits of it remind you of other things. So like, I always think the Biaki, where it looks a bit like a vulture, but a vulture crossed with a zombie, crossed with a... So it's like your mind picks out those bits that you can attach some value to.
Yeah.
And I like the things like, well, they could be eyes. You know, but they could be something else totally. The other thing with the color that just brought to mind the squid, you know, that's the squid changing color thing. Or
a cuttlefish and things. The way they the colors ripple and stuff like that and change. Well, even their movement actually is kind of, well, you'll see why later, because they come from a place that is kind of, it's almost like a liquid atmosphere, isn't it? Something like that is kind of described.
Yeah.
Because they kind of move in a kind of squid-like manner. Impossible beyond belief, they hung before him among the rocks, swaying forward with a dreamy slowness, as if attached to the ground by their tasselled streamers. Their fringes of woven tendrils seemed to float towards him, quivering with restless life, and certain of their eye-like features gradually brightened and drew his gaze with the hypnotic gleaming of crystals. So it's almost like jellyfish kind of motion.
Yeah,
you know, that kind of pulsing, throbbing, jellyfishy kind of thing.
Yeah, throbbing jellyfish, didn't they support throbbing gristle?
yeah, throbbing jellyfish would be a great name for an industrial band.
that'd be the Throbbing Gristle tribute band, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Not only are they physically alien, but their locomotion is as well.
Mm.
And then we get this low, insistent humming, which corresponds vaguely with the slow vibration of the fringes in its beat and cadence. And this is not sure if he's hearing it outside or if it's inside his brain, which ties in with a lot of that sort of me-go thing as well, doesn't it? You know, things talking to you telepathically, you're not sure where the sound is coming from.
Again, I'm getting a major 60s sci-fi vibe from these creatures in the way they sort of appear. You can almost imagine them appearing to Captain Kirk or William Hartnell, you know.
Yeah, with that high pitch.
Yeah, or even like Lost in Space or something, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Gradually, this sound, it takes on, it forms a meaning. There's that word vocable we mentioned earlier. And he's getting this idea that they're saying, come with us. And he realized that the beings were trying earnestly to convey an invitation by means of unearthly vocal organs, which is a very nice phrase.
Mm.
And that's where he gets this vision. He received an idea of immense distance and alien, distorted perspective. In a blare of exotic light, a sea-like flood of intense colour, strange angled machineries towered, and structures that might have been either buildings or vegetable growths receded on a ground of baffling dimension and doubtful inclination. Through this baroque scenery, there floated forms that bore a slight and incoherent resemblance to the beings who confronted him, a resemblance like the broken hint of natural shapes maintained in the utmost perversions of cubism. The first thing I thought of there was Rillier.
Yes. Yeah.
Alien landscape.
Definitely. Yeah. I can't remember the Smith story it was when he ended up in that big city, which it was very similar in its weirdness. It was similar but different, if you know what I mean. It just, yeah.
Yeah. I think that was one that was a similar plot where there was an invasion later on.
It was. That's the one I'm trying to remember. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure someone can remind us.
It's like we've seen already, we've read out a reference, but looking down these paragraphs, there's several mentions of moonfish. So I just want to, like they used as a description thing, I just want to basically say a moonfish is actually called an opa. It's also known as a sunfish, cowfish, kingfish, and redfin ocean pan. They're basically large, colourful, deep-bodied, pelagic, lampriform fishes comprising the genus Lampris. So they're big. They're big fish. They sort of size of a wok.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
A lampreys, are they the ones that latch onto you? Is that the...
Oh, that's different. That's a lamprey, not a lampris.
Oh, a lampris. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I got it. We also got a mention of cubism there, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with. I think Picasso is probably the most well-known exponent of that. Early 20th century, and it's where you get multiple perspectives put onto an image. I think everyone will be familiar with Picasso's faces, right, where you see both the eyes, even though you're looking at the side. So that it's kind of like 3D put onto 2D, was the way I'd explain it.
Yeah.
But I thought that was nice because, again, that brings us into a lot of the mythos stuff we talk about of a eighth dimensional creature being experienced in 3 dimensions. You know, it's that same sort of feel, I think.
Yeah, that whole perception thing. Well, this whole story is about perception, really, and how your perception can be altered and change, and how basically we can't perceive things. You know, well, it's like from beyond, right? For all we know, there could be some blobby jellyfish monster right next to our heads right now, but we can't perceive it.
I can see yours.
Oh, he's called Dave. He's all right.
Yeah, From Beyond was something else that cropped into my mind as well, particularly the film, which was so good and graphic at depicting those horrors, wasn't it? That was one of the best parts of that film, I thought.
Yeah, not the best part of that film, but I'll leave that up to the listener to work out what I'm referring to.
It doesn't take long, does it? It doesn't take long.
It doesn't. Descending to the gutter.
And as you can imagine, he's somewhat taken aback by this, Mr. Sarkis. And, well, he ponders, doesn't he? He ponders the invitation. Should he accept it? And if he did accept, what would happen? But, of course, it was all a dream. And dreams were tricky things with a habit of vanishing if one consciously tried to fathom their elusive vistas. But supposing it were not a dream. So we have this very typical battle with rationality, trying to rationalize the weird and the unusual and the strange.
Mm-hmm.
And the beings pick up on this. The pictures on their bodies faded and were slowly replaced by others, as if they sought to woo him with the varied sceneries of their native world. At the same time, the humming noise resumed, and he gets a couple more meanings come through, in particular, the words offer and escape. And I like this mention here, as if these vocables were uttered by some enormous droning insect. So that sounds quite sinister to me.
Yeah. Well, you see it a lot in horror movies, right? When something bad's going to happen. I mean, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a great example of it. You know, when they park up and they're walking and you suddenly get that drone of the cicadas and crickets and all that. And they always do it a lot in horror movies. You put it really high in the sound mix. So it's sort of, and flies buzzing and things like that. You just know something's gonna happen.
But then we hear the happy campers approaching. It's like they're about to come round the bend sort of thing. And we get the appearance of what seems to be some sort of machine hanging above these creatures. A maze of slanted rods and curving reticulations seemed to hover and descend about the two beings. An instant later it was gone, and the visitants had also disappeared. So, just like that, they disappeared, and is left alone with his party of happy campers. We can only imagine his bewilderment at this point in time.
Bewilderment like that of some rudely awakened sleeper was added the eerie consternation of one who thinks that he has met the supernatural. Yeah, I can just imagine, because he spent all this time and effort to get away from it. It's just like, oh, bollocks, they followed me. It's that thing of like the mundane encroaching into something good and interesting and fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens all the time, doesn't it? You know, you'll be in the middle of a really great piece of music or writing a story, and then you get a gas bill. You know, it's that same thing, isn't it?
Straight back down to earth with a bang.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's kind of exactly what happens here, right? He returns to San Francisco and resumes his livelihood of tedious commercial art, which formed his one reliable source of income. This uncongenial exigency had involved the ruthless smothering of higher ambitions. So it's like most of us, you know, you got to pay the bills. You want to be painting these fantastic scenes. Instead is what he's designing baked bean tins or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
And we get a nice little mention of Beardsley there as well, Aubrey Beardsley.
Indeed.
But such pictures, it seemed, were in small request.
Like everything artistic, isn't it? You know, you want to paint something really impressive or write something really impressive, and what they really want is
portrait of their dog. But of course, his experience has left an indelible impression on him, and it's an impression that starts seeping into his work as well. Because after he's done his daily stint at advertising art, he starts trying to paint the visitants from memory, and it's find it difficult to achieve this. He can't really capture. Well, it's difficult because these things are constantly changing hue, and you've got that movement. To capture that in a still life will be quite a challenge, I imagine. Plus, we get a mention of an alien spectrum and trans-Euclidean geometry.
Ooh,
that's a first, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trans-Euclidean.
Nice.
I think Lovecraft would have been nodding to himself there and going, yes, well done, yes.
Yeah, if he had a pipe, he'd have been puffing on it, yeah, thoughtfully. Yeah.
Extra scoop of ice cream, I think.
Yeah, that was more Derleth's thing, wasn't it? The smoking jacket.
Yes, and the pipe, yes. Yeah. So he's painting one evening, and he can't really get it. He regards what he's done as a silly smudge of overpainted colours, which utterly fail to convey the true outlandishness of its theme. But then suddenly, bop, the two beings appear again behind him. With the loaded brush in his fingers, Sarkis could only stand and stare, held in the same hypnotic thrall that had swept him beyond fear or wonder on the mountain. Once more he beheld the gradual, somnolent waving of the arabesque feelers. Again, he heard the dreamy, monotonous hum that resolved itself into long-drawn vocables, inviting him to go with the visitants. Again, on the moonfish discs were depicted scenes that would have been the despair of a futurist. Almost without emotion or thought of any kind, Sarkis gave an audible consent. He hardly knew that he had spoken. So, is there an implication, because we get that word hypnotic, that he is of his own mind in this, or is there a certain amount of allure or siren-like call going on?
I see it almost as like, you see in films like A Devil's Bargain, that kind of thing, where you'll get some temptation. And it's like, oh, well, if you come with me, I will show you this and that and this and that. And they're sort of like, nah, I don't want to give you my soul kind of thing. And then they go back to their everyday job and they're banging out baked bean tins and talking to Dave in customer services and all this other shit. And then so when they appear again, they're like, yep, take me to your leader. It's very much that trope, isn't it?
Yes. And he's had a second chance. And the other speculation with this then is, why him? Why do they choose him? But of course, this ties into a lot of Smith's other themes, particularly, in a way, the Alban cycle, if we can call it that.
Yeah.
Because quite often there you've got the poet stood on the bridge thinking, should he chuck himself over? Or we've got the artist looking up at the stars, the Pleiades or something, and is drawn through the telescope. It's very much seems this wish to escape, doesn't it?
It is. It is all that kind of thing, and again, some of it ties it back into, I think, into not only his own sort of desires to get away from Auburn, but also I think there's that shred of Ambrose Bierce in there with all of these Auburn stories, because obviously his disappearance and all that, and the great debates that him and Sterling and Loveman and all the rest of it had about what became of him and all this, and they came up with these brilliantly grandiose things of him being a jaguar king for a tribe and all this kind of stuff, right? It's that sort of, like you say, sort of wish fulfillment, escapism kind of thing. And you mentioned earlier that the name meant shepherd.
Right.
So, of course, Ambrose Bierce, Aether the shepherd.
Ah, yeah. Yes.
It's pure speculation on my part. It's probably complete cobblers, but that's where my brain went.
Well, I think Smith was very precise in his use of words, so I won't be at all surprised. I know it's easy to draw meanings and inferences, but I wouldn't be at all surprised with this, to be honest.
Yeah,
I'd made that connection. Yeah. And we get one of those Smithian voyages, trips, which, again, as we say, it's a mechanism he uses quite a lot in all these type of stories, but each one is very different. An instant more and the room vanished like a film of shadow wiped away in light. There was no sense of movement or of transit, but it seemed that a foreign sky had opened above, pouring down a deluge of crimson. Redness streamed upon him. It filled his eyes with a fury as of boiling blood. It dripped over him in sullen or burning cascades. By degrees, he began to distinguish outlines and masses. The bars and meshes were still around him. His strange companions were still beside him. They were weirdly altered now, and they swam in the crimson flood like the goblin fish of some infernal sea. Involuntarily, Sarkis shrank away from them. They were terrifying, monstrous. I suppose now he's seeing them in their true shape.
Indeed, yeah. Well, it's quite interesting because you said a minute ago that he chooses everything very precisely, and I think this is a great example of that, because this is a voyage of perception, of pure perception. It's all visual. It's all how he perceives, because so many of his others are more visceral, sickness, vertigo, feeling, tactile, whereas this is pure perception.
Yeah, I hadn't picked up on that, but of course, in the very opening there was no sense of movement.
Yeah.
Whereas other ones, there's a feeling of falling or being drawn. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Has he gone anywhere at all? Perhaps we are in From Beyond territory.
Yeah, maybe it's not so much a voyage through space as a step sideways into another dimension, It's that CERN collider again, isn't it?
Don't get me started. And we get the word goblin again. Now, I haven't counted, but this word crops up a lot in this story. It's not a word that Smith often uses. I'm sure he has used it once or twice in other stories, but it gets a lot of airing in this story. So I thought I'd look up the derivation of the word, and I found possibly an interesting connection here. So the word goblin itself dates back to the 14th century, but if we go for the French, and I'm going to murder the pronunciation, gobelin, then we go back to the 12th century, either Anglo-Norman, gobelin, or the Latin, get this, gobelinus. Isn't that a great name?
Nice.
Now, again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but gobelinus sounds good to me. That was the name of a devil or demon haunting the countryside around Evreux in Normandy. How Averoian is that?
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So I did wonder there if there was a little kind of Averoian crossover thing going on in his mind.
Possibly. Gobelinus. If you change that slightly, Corbelimus, it could be a character from Carry On Cleo, couldn't it?
Like Hengist Pod.
Hengist Pod.
One of my favourite film names
and
ever.
His wife, Senna. Yeah.
I've forgotten that. Yeah. Infamy. Oh, got it, infamy.
Yeah.
There's also links to the German kobold, because we think gobe, which means hollow in a rock. So this sort of place, goblins live in caves and caverns, don't they? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And this in turn led to the Welsh, and again, excuse my pronunciation, goblin, which is a knocker, which of course also got down to Cornwall, right? In the tin mines, you'll know about that.
Indeed, they feature in one of my novellas.
Yeah.
Although there's an eldritch it's a Macanesque actually explanation for them, which ties back into the Welsh. So there we go.
Nice. Yeah. Yes, the knocker. I believe they hung around in pairs as well.
Indeed, yeah, like Bristols.
And there's goblin-like creatures in loads of different cultures. Every culture has something similar. A couple of my favourites. South Africa is the Tokolosh, which is a very interesting one. But my favourite name, this is from, again, apologies for pronunciations, from Wampanoag folklore. They were people who lived around the sort of Rhode Island area, Massachusetts, and they had the Pukwudgie. That's nice, isn't it?
Again, I'm going to take it into the gutter here, but my favourite is the German Nickel, which ties in pumpernickel bread. Do you know what pumpernickel bread loosely translates to?
No, go on.
Fart goblin.
Yeah, of course it does. Fart goblin, brilliant. That's who I blame it on generally. That or the dog,
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, the other work that people will know goblins from is Tolkien, particularly The Hobbit. But he then also changed the name to Orcs, which basically is Hobbit for Goblin.
Yeah.
Hobbit for Goblin sounds like it should be an album title or something.
Like Hot for Teacher, isn't it?
Hot for Teacher, yeah. I'm feeling Hobbit for Goblin. Yeah. God knows what that might mean.
Oh, I just heard that in Dave Lee Roth's voice as well.
I always thought at one time, especially after reading The Hobbit and then Lord of the Rings, that goblins and orcs were different. Like goblins were small things and orcs were bigger creatures.
I always did.
But they're the same.
I always thought that it was some kind of crossbreeding, kind of super soldiery kind of shit going on. But yeah, but that's your Orokai, isn't it? And yeah.
Well, you get your sort of half orcs with Saruman, which again, there's speculation that we probably don't want to go into.
Sure.
But no, Tolkien was very adamant that the orcs were goblins were orcs. They were the same thing. Yeah. I think goblin perhaps sounds a little less scary than Irk, So yes, I just wondered why Smith uses that word so much in this story. It just stood out for me because these things are not goblin-like in that sense, are they at all?
No, it's more like a jellyfish.
Yeah.
Like a Portuguese man of war, really. Because they're kind of like a weird conglomeration of organisms, aren't they, really? So it's kind of like that.
Well, as we say, if you want to see the true horrors, look in the sea, isn't it? I mean, Lovecraft had that right, didn't he? That's where all the really nasties live.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and we get it even in pretty much the next paragraph. Passing through the doorway, he entered a sea of light in which he was unable to discern clearly the features of the landscape. Almost vertically overhead, he saw the blinding blot of a vast sun. The throng of goblin people, increasing momently, bore him down a grassless barren slope whose bottom was lost in the inundating crimson. Has your bottom ever been lost in inundating crimson?
Not for a while.
Not for a while. And they carry him to a tower. And of course, the whole point of this story is in this totally alien landscape and his senses are overwhelmed. He really can't take this on any level. Everything is totally alien. The touch, the sights, the sounds, the smells. And you get the feeling here he's starting really to lose his grip on sanity.
Mm. Yeah, he's just failed the sand roll at this point, hasn't he?
Mm. And he starts shrieking, right, and fighting against what's described as the clammily repulsive touch of the tentacles.
Indeed.
Lovecraft's nodding again.
Well, then we got a mention of octopi as well at one point, don't we? So,
and it's basically held in place on a sort of couch. And this is where we get more description of the surroundings and the environment and the sky, and just how slow everything is a feature as well. it's not just this physical aspect, but the way that time runs in this place seems totally different as well.
Yeah, languid would be the word I'd describe. Sort of like a sluggish river, isn't it?
Yeah. And eventually he passes out, he loses consciousness. When he wakes up, they try to offer him food and drink, but he's beyond even that at the moment.
Yeah, he's sort of been held down, isn't he, by streamers of 4 attendants. So he's sort of pinned on this couch by tentacles. It's the sort of situation I think Zoe Burgess would approve of.
But they're obviously trying to help him here because they say they offer him fruit-like objects and some sort of liquid.
Mm.
Utterly astray and unstrung, Sarkis shrank in renewed terror from these beings. Bathed in that lugubrious violet, their outre forms were cadaverous as dead things from another star. An infinite melancholia poured from the purple sun, cascaded from the sloping walls, jetted from the monstrous carvings. The humming of his attendants, who doubtless sought to reassure him, was heavy with a dirge-like horror. Refusing the offered food and drink, he closed his eyes and lay inert beneath the dismal madness that had fallen upon him. So it's interesting how these colours and seeing these things is having a profound effect on his mood as well.
Mm.
Because a colour can't be sad. Colour doesn't possess an emotion in and of itself, but it can bring that emotion out in someone.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read a study a while ago about the use of colour, because obviously a great example is the yellow wallpaper, right? And the yellow was used in them for the rest cure and all that kind of stuff. But I read this study, and it was on newlyweds, and newlyweds with red decorated living rooms.
Right.
And they had a proportionally higher number of arguments than those with more muted tones like blues and things like that.
Really? Wow.
It's probably utter cobblers, but I found it really interesting. It was just like, yeah, because red, it's a combative colour, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a soothing colour, is it?
No. Mate of mine went into great detail about it because it was him who gave me the article. He's into all that. He's into all that meditation and all that kind of stuff and feng shui and all that.
Right, right.
And he told me about this because I was on about what colours I wanted to decorate when I moved into my flat, and he was like, "Don't do red." And I was like, "Oh, you're talking cobblers, Steve-O." And he was like, No, here you go, read this.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that if you sat in a totally red room or whatever, or black room or whatever it is, that's going to have some sort of effect on you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Most of my domestic arguments have been about you're not putting your alien poster up in the living room.
Yes. Yeah. So
yes, and your tiny tanks can go in that room. They're not going on the mantelpiece.
Yeah. Well, you keep all your toys out of the way.
That's why you need a shed. Absolutely need a shed.
Yes, indeed.
And this first part ends with basically he's being put under the knife and he's given some sort of sedative. That's a terrifying thing, that they start to disrobe him and he feels himself start to become numb and he's fading away. And you can almost picture sort of something hovering over him with scalpels in its tentacles or something. That's scary. That's scary.
It's a great image.
His return to awareness was like a new birth. Strangeness there was, such as an infant would find in its surroundings, but fear and pain were wholly gone. He found nothing monstrous or unnatural or menacing in the world that was now revealed to his senses. So basically, they've given him the operation. They've made some adjustments to his brain or his nerves and his sense organs. Now everything around him appears normal. He's experiencing the world as they do.
It's an interesting concept, isn't it? That it's almost like the sort of lobotomy kind of thing, isn't it? The sort of the thinking behind that was you directly alter the brain to change somebody's perception, whether it, of emotion or whatever.
In that case, from what I understand, taking stuff or shutting bits down, really, taking bits away and not giving you access to certain types of thought, perhaps.
It's quite a mirror to sort of Victorian medical procedures, really, because like the use of drugs and hallucinogenics and all this kind of stuff to try and fix people who thought differently.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like taking that to its logical conclusion, isn't it?
Yeah. And we're not that far off LSD and the doors of perception and, all that kind of thing. We're only sort of 30 years off that, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think LSD was the late 40s, wasn't it, with Sanders? Got a feeling 47 is in my mind for some reason.
Yeah.
It's changed from 23.
Well, Smith did mention in that letter to Lovecraft, hashish.
Yes. Well, that would have been the thing at this time.
Indeed.
Right? The hashish eater and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And of course, you had people like De Quincey and all that kind of stuff, like the end of the last century, romanticizing the poppy and all that.
Well, yeah, your romantic poets would have been a similar sort of thing. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, arsenic eaters and all that. Yeah.
And before that, you've got Blake bobbing around London going, a dryad
Yes.
Tottenham Court Road. He must have been an interesting guy to know, mustn't he?
Indeed.
Did you know you've got a troll in your garden? Perhaps the profoundest change was in his visual images. He saw new colours of supernal softness and beauty. The red daylight, which had almost maddened him, was now a clear and nameless hue, which he somehow associated with emerald green. The light of the violet binary no longer depressed him, and its ultraspectral colour was remotely allied to pale amber. His ideas of form had undergone a corresponding alteration. The bodies and members of the alien people, which he had thought almost two-dimensional, and which had terrified him with their goblin grotesquerie, presented many subtle planes and curves, together with a depth that argued the addition of at least one totally new dimension. The whole effect was aesthetically pleasing, with a fundamental symmetry such as he had previously discerned in well-shaped human bodies. The vegetation, scenery, and architecture no longer impressed him as abnormal or monstrous. That's interesting, this idea of dimensional shift as well, because, well, I suppose, how many dimensions are there? It's the question. I mean, I can think of 4 that we experience, the 3 dimensions plus time. So what is the 5th one, apart from being the name of a 60s hippie band? Was that the 5th dimension? I think it was.
It was the 5th dimension, yeah.
And we get this idea of synesthesia as well crop up here, where he's hearing colours,
Yeah.
and he's feeling sounds and all that sort of thing. So again, this idea that his sensory range has totally been expanded, man. Well, funnily enough, we get mention of the 5th dimension here. That was totally unplanned, because now he can communicate with his hosts. So we get the backstory, we get the Smithian world building, and they explained to him that the manner in which they visited the Earth and had taken Sarkis to their own world was indeed strange and involved the use of an arcanic force, which, by projecting itself through the 5th dimension, could exist simultaneously in opposite corners of the universe. So I think we're on the right tracks when saying he hasn't really moved in space. He's just slipped across into another dimension.
Like a record needle slipping the groove.
Oh, yeah, slipping the groove. And a little bit like some of the aliens in other stories, they've not just been to Earth, they've been all over the place, all over the galaxy.
Yeah, I got Me Go reference it like in my head with this, especially with the insectoid buzzing as well.
That could almost be Mego, couldn't they, in one sense?
They could, yeah.
You think you've got that crustacean-y, insectoid, tentacly thing going on. Changing the colours, that's the Mego thing.
Indeed, yeah, the pyramidal head things, yeah.
Yeah. And I like these names we get for 2 of them.
Oh, yeah.
Nla and Nlu. Uvavu. It's kind of odd, isn't it? But like, imagine if one had been called Brian and one had been Trevor or something. I mean, there's no reason why they shouldn't be in a way, is there? It's this Nla and Nlu. It's interesting how these names are sort of made up as well, I think.
Brian and Trevor.
You'd be quite disappointed, wouldn't you? Traveled into another dimension to meet Brian and Trevor.
Behold our wondrous leader, Dave.
Dave the Magnificent.
Dave the Magnificent. Oh, back to the life of Brian, aren't we?
Yes. We get quite a lot of details about how they operate, about their society and their culture. They don't need food. They draw nourishment from their surroundings. And we get some clue as to why they chose him. They've perceived telepathically his dissatisfaction with mundane life, being sympathetic in their way and also curious concerning the result of such an experiment. They had invited him to accompany them on their return to Umlock. So, yeah, this is benevolent. This is an alien abduction and getting probed and all the rest of it and then dumped back on Earth. They seem genuinely concerned for him or interested in him.
Yeah. I like this description of him here. When we're talking about their nourishment and stuff, that they draw the nourishment directly from the air and light. And their topless towers were designed to collect and focus all the solar rays, the absorption of which was to them a rare Epicurean pleasure. So they're kind of like algae. Like algae or lichen or something like that. They've got that kind of property going on.
Or fungi.
Fungi from Yugoth. Fungi from Moloch.
From Moloch. Well, here's a speculation that these could be Migo, but it's how people perceive them. In Lovecraft stories where they crop up, certain people perceive them in one way. Perhaps these are the same creatures, but just perceived from another viewpoint. You know, because all this stuff is way beyond our understanding. So again, it's that idea of, oh my God, it's a floating brain monster. Oh, look, it's a pretty jellyfish thing, you know.
Yeah.
So he doesn't really know how long he stays here. He has shifted into their sort of time stream, this slowness, which we're going to see come back towards the end of the story. But of course, the human condition now reveals itself, right? He's got nothing to worry about here. He's got not a care in the world, whichever world it might be, but he starts to get bored.
Yeah. He starts to get homesick. But homesick for what? His life of designing bean cans, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Says it's a nostalgia, isn't it?
Nostalgia, yeah.
A nostalgia rose in his brain, which was still at the bottom, the brain of an Earthman. So this is Smith directly addressing the human condition here. And we all get it right. You know, that tinge of nostalgia. I saw something the other day online. It was like a dinky toy that I remember having as a kid.
Yeah.
And it's just this wave of like, suddenly I was 7 again in the garden playing UFO or whatever it was. And it's like, you know, in that second, you think, oh, if I could go back there, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know where that comes from in us. I presume it is a human thing, and that do animals experience that in any way at all? Maybe some of the higher mammals, perhaps. I mean, salmon return to their spawning grounds, don't they? That's like a biological imperative. I don't know.
Maybe gorillas are gonna. Oh, you know what? I wish I was back in that bit of the jungle that had that really cool tree.
Yeah,
you know,
I used to scratch my back on that every day. You know, it felt good.
It had a really good bowl on it. It was really good for getting the itches out.
His hosts are well aware of this, so they try and distract him. They take him on a tour of the planet. This is like sort of Jules Verne now, right?
Yeah.
In this tour, they employed a vessel which swam through the thick air like a submarine in some Tellurian ocean, or yellow submarine or something.
Yeah, I like this. That it is a proper tour guide thing, because Nalar and Nalu accompany him, pointing out the marvels of each latitude. You can just imagine them like with their frondy tentacles going, and on the left, you will see the gardens of Honolulu. You know.
That's where, as a young tentacle, I first spawned.
Yeah.
I suppose you can kind of see it in that sense, in terms of, can he make an emotional connection with anything?
We're back to perception again, aren't we? And all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've altered his sensory perceptions, but they can't alter his emotional needs.
His drives. Yeah.
There's certainly no mention of anything rumpus in there in this one.
Indeed. I was just about to say, I mean, because that's going to be a factor, right?
Yeah. Unlike the door to Saturn, right?
Yeah.
Top of the menu.
Let's go and try that tribe.
We've got to do what? Oh, okay then.
Yeah, all right.
They even offer to inject him with a rare vegetable serum, which will basically alter his memories. So I guess that's almost like a reboot. of your brain. But he kind of shies away from that. And I think that's interesting because he feels that that will take him forever beyond humanity. He wants to retain his humanity. However, before any of that gets resolved, we get something that we mentioned before has happened in more than one of these type of stories. We get the invasion. We get the alien invasion.
Yeah, it's the doom that came to Moloch, basically, isn't it?
And this is from a place I'd never heard of. I had to look this one up. The Coalsack Nebula. So this is basically a dark nebula near the Southern Cross. And it's what it sounds like. It's an area of space that is dark. So whatever is on the other side of it, we can't see. If there's anything in it, we can't see it. Why it's dark, I don't know. Perhaps they didn't pay their bill and got cut off. Who knows? But it's a dark blot in space, which in itself is quite Lovecraftian.
Isn't it? The all-encompassing void. That's what old HPL would call it, isn't it? Something like that. Maybe that's where old Gnarly comes from, you know, the Audient Void. Maybe that's it.
Oh.
Maybe it's the Coalsack Nebula. There we go.
Yes.
Connections with connections.
Not the Nutsack Nebula.
The Nutsack Nebula.
Yeah, that just hangs up. No, anyway.
Isn't that a nightclub?
If it isn't, it should be.
It sounds like a nightclub or something, doesn't it? Anyway. Where are you going? Oh, going down the Nutsack Nebula for some banging tunes.
Zero, dear. Zero. Small fish, big fish cardboard box.
Exactly.
And in fact, what comes from this is a dark cloud. The first warning of this invasion was a dark cloud, a thing hitherto unknown in Moloch, whose humid element was constant in the thick seas and heavy air without evaporation or precipitation. The cloud, which had the form of a trapezium, drew down and widened rapidly above the southern zones, doming the sky with intense ebon. It broke on the lands beneath in a rain of black liquid globules which acted like a mordant chemical. Flesh, stone, soil, vegetation, everything that was touched by the rain dissolved instantly, forming tarry pools and rills that soon merged in an ever-spreading sea. This is some serious chemical warfare shit, this, isn't it?
Yeah.
WMD, which again we've seen in previous science fiction stories of Smith.
See, this to me, this is great stuff. This, I kind of wish that the more of the story was given over to this. Because this is incredibly grim. It's almost like Gotti-esque, really, isn't it? It's this dark cloud that's basically going to swamp everything in this sticky ooze of doom, and just basically becomes like a corrosive sea. And it's this description here which it gives it that Gotti-esque quality to me, like a liquid cancer ate steadily into the huge planet.
Oh, grim.
Exactly.
Grim.
Yeah. I love all that. I love that grimness. So, yeah.
It's not like they've just come and I'm trying to think what sci-fi film or series it was. They just basically nuke a planet and render it uninhabitable for 5 years and then come back 5 years later and terraform it or whatever.
Yeah.
This is, let's just drop this at the North Pole and over the next 6 months it'll gradually spread and kill everything. It's relentless.
Yeah.
It puts me in mind, was it on Venus we had the big Shoggoth thing?
Yes.
That gradually expanded, that type of idea.
The immeasurable horror.
Yes.
Well, I wonder here if this is a kind of terraforming thing, because we know nothing about these ne'er-do-wells. So maybe they come from a planet. Maybe that's what they're used to. They live in this sticky black ooze.
Oh, right.
It's like in Doctor Who. So there you go. You can cross that off, Nils. The Sontarans come from a world which is very gaseous and all the rest of it. So their plan when they come to Earth is to make it, so basically they pollute the hell out of it, like smog and yada, 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 to try and make it like their home world, make it habitable
for them.
So I wonder if this is some kind of, scorched earth terraforming kind of thing.
Yeah, and I suppose if we put that into another perspective, if at some point, if we ever make it out that far, we were terraforming alien planets, we're going to make the atmosphere breathable for us. Well, to anything on the planet at the time, that's death. So you're almost back to that colonialism again, isn't it? Let's go somewhere else and change it to be more like where we come from. And in the process of doing that, destroy whatever was here in the first place.
Mm.
The Molochi seem quite resigned to this. He describes them as a philosophic race long given to equable meditation on cosmic change and death, and they were resigned to the coming annihilation.
Yeah, it's sort of grim resignation, isn't it?
They have the capability to flee. They've got space projectors, of course, space projectors.
Mm-hmm.
So they could escape, but they prefer to stay here and perish with their planet. So quite a, what would you call that, laid-back attitude to annihilation. Perhaps they just regard it as another part of the cosmic cycle, maybe. They don't want to subject Sarkis to this. They say, well, look, we can send you back. And they do. And this is where we get the twist in the tale. Since, as they told him, they could determine by means of their thought images the very spot in which he was to land, he had expressed a desire to return to Earth via his studio in San Francisco. So he goes through that similar experience and arrives back in his studio, where you presume he lives happily ever after. Ah, there's one tiny detail that no one thought of.
I love this. And you know, there's often discussion about whether Smith did drugs or not, right? Now, Exhibit A. Around him in a sullen light, he saw the looming of dark, chaotic masses, whose very contours were touched with nightmare menace. Surely this place was not his studio room. These crazily angled cliffs that closed him in were not walls, but the sides of some infernal pit. The dome above, with its dolorously distorted planes pouring down a hellish glare, was not the skylighted roof that he recalled. The bulging horrors that rose before him along the bottom of the pit, with obscene forms and corrupt hues, were surely not his easel, table, and chairs. We've all been there, right?
We've all been there. We've all been there. Bad trip, man.
Bad trip, mushrooms, you wake up, well, even you wake up after a spree on the booze, right? And everything's a bit unreal and strange.
And I love this way he takes a step, but somehow the step carries him like across and over and into something. His whole sense of space has changed as well. As we know, we spoke about that dimensional change. And when he falls against something and touches it, he finds it clammily repulsive to the touch as well as repugnant to sight. The thing was like an overswollen geometric travesty of an armchair. I was kind of thinking like sort of Hellraiser type stuff as this as well.
Yeah.
You go into other spaces that are like Earth, but everything's like altered.
Fleshy.
And fleshy, yeah.
Fleshy and suppurating. Yeah.
And of course, he understands now that, yes, they've sent him back, but they forgot to rearrange his nervous system. They forgot to reset him.
Mm.
And we get this really nice description of how he eventually manages to get out the room, opens the door, gets down the hall, down 2 flights of stairs to the street, and if the apartment was bad, then the street is even worse. He heard the noises of the awakening city, set to an alien tempo of delirious speed and fury, a hurtling of cruel clangors whose higher notes beat upon him like the pounding of hammers, the volleying of pebbles. The ceaseless impingement stunned him more and more. It seemed that the thronging strokes would batter in his very brain. And because of that time distortion as well, everything's moving at like triple speed here.
Yep.
Even the people, all right? The people were ghastly creatures whose headlong movement barely permitted him to form a clear impression of their bulging eyes, their bloated faces and bodies. They terrified him, even as the people of Moloch beneath a maddening vermilion sun. So it's kind of staggering around the city. Obviously, he's got a memory of the place. He's got a rough idea of where he is.
Mm.
Actually, this reminded me, did you ever see The Man with X-Ray Eyes?
Yes.
Ray Milland.
Indeed. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to give away the ending because that's a great ending to a movie.
That is a great film.
Yeah. But as his condition progresses, I suppose you'd call it, he sees kind of less and less, but more and more.
That's it.
They do quite a good effect on that, given that it's a sort of 1960s film. And in the end, yeah, it's like that thing, I can see forever.
It's great. I actually watched that relatively recently. It really holds up. Really good film.
Yeah. I think that was due to be Vincent Price in that
I
originally.
think it was, yeah.
Yeah, because Ray Milland also was in Premature Burial.
Yeah.
It was like the Vincent Price stand-in, I think. So, of course, I suppose the inevitable happens. He steps out in the road and he gets hit by a car.
Well, before that, he goes to this park, and I just want to bring this up because there's a great thing here. He came to an open space which he had known as a small park, with well-kept trees and shrubbery amid the greening grass. Now, he'd gone there quite often, very fond memories of it, but now he describes it as thus. The trees and shrubs were like towering fungi of Gehenna, loathsome, unclean, and the grass was vermin-grey foulness from which he turned in sick revulsion. See, that's a very Smithian, but also Lovecraftian landscape, but isn't some world. It's just his perception of our world.
Yeah, yeah.
But who's to say that's not the true perception?
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? It's all down to perception and viewpoint, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
In the same way, like we experience time different than a ladybird or a bee or a wasp or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even dogs and cats, I imagine. Well, cats are asleep 24 hours a day, so, you know.
Well, we've all seen those things where cats and dogs just suddenly start staring off into space and reacting to something that isn't there, right? I mean, we're back to our floating jellyfish monsters, aren't we? You know.
Well, yeah, but also our sensory range is extremely limited.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of interesting things. So there's that, and you can only wonder if our range of hearing or the amount we take in optically was tweaked a little bit, how the world would look and sound. But also that idea of we live, obviously, on a planet that is suited for us. But I always think of it like a graphic equalizer. If you start tweaking little bits, even a touch, a notch or two, we're done. That's it.
Yeah.
And of course, there's been times in history, I think they say that, I can't remember when exactly it was, but there was an event that virtually wipes us out at one time. I think we were down to like hundreds or maybe a few thousands. And of course, the human race always bounces back, doesn't it? We're a virus with shoes. You know?
Bill Hicks, isn't it? That?
Yeah. But even so, you know, you stick the temperature up a bit or down a bit, or you change the amount of radiation coming down or whatever. And that's it. It is that little island that Lovecraft speaks of.
Indeed. Placid island of ignorance.
And here's Tom with the weather.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what a condition to find yourself in. And of course, to the doctors who find him, well, they don't know what to make of it. When, with reviving consciousness, he began to scream horribly and to shrink away as if in mortal terror from his attendants, they were inclined to diagnose the case as delirium tremens. His nerves were obviously in a bad way, though curiously enough, the doctors failed to detect the presence of alcohol or any known drug to support their diagnosis. And two details here that I thought were really creepy. One was they note the queer deformation of his eyeballs, and also the singular long-drawn slowness of his screams and writhings. It's like he's moving in slow motion. That's quite a disturbing one, that.
So yeah, I've got this impression of his also almost like whale song kind of thing, you know. Like, if there's any whales listening, we probably just proposed to them.
Oh, you're going to get knock on the door. I got your message. I don't suppose Jacques Cousteau is around anymore, but if he is, we are available for voiceover work. And
Kiki the killer whale.
We do speak Innsmouthian fluently, so there is that.
Indeed, yeah.
But then I think the ending, it couldn't have ended any other way, really. But it was a bit. I turned the page and is that it? Because this is how it ends. We've got the slowness of his screams and writhings. However, though baffling, his case was readily enough dismissed by the doctors when, a week later, he persisted in dying. It was merely one more of those unsolved enigmas that sometimes occur even in the best regulated of professions. Bam, that's it. I imagine he almost willed himself to die, perhaps.
Yeah.
Because how could you live with that? And there's a little dig there, I think, the best regulated of professions. Still, they can't explain it. So if we can't explain it, we'll just pretend that never happened.
Yeah.
You know, no one's writing that one up as anything other than is an old alky. That's it.
Yeah. Drank himself to death. Bang, stamp the certificate.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think. Well, I don't often agree with Wright, but I think he was correct in some ways in saying, yeah, a lot of description, not a lot of action. Well, virtually no action at all.
Yeah, it's interesting because Smith was actually really proud of this story. He'd actually written in a letter saying, as far as I know, it's almost the only attempt to convey the profound disturbance of function and sensation that would inevitably be experienced by a human being on an alien world. Now, that comes from a letter to August Derleth in May the 23rd in 1933. Now, Derleth read it and passed it along to Lovecraft. Now, there's a little exchange here. They didn't kind of agree with Smith on this one. August Derleth said, here you go, here's a star change. This is not very good, I regret to say. Now, this could, like a lot of that, it says here in the notes as well, it's a very valid point. That could be because Derleth's just not a fan of contemporary science fiction. He really wasn't a fan. He didn't really like it. But Lovecraft agreed with August Derleth, replying, the idea is magnificent, but as you say, the mode of its handling is mediocre.
Oh. He doesn't mince his words, does he, HBO?
No, but I'm kind of with him on that. I'm not with Derleth in terms of it's just crap.
Yeah.
But I'm with Lovecraft because I totally agree. The concept, I love it. I love the concept, and all the stuff of the playing with the perception and all that is really interesting stuff. And he could have made a really, really creepy, uncanny story with that, and then add in that other thing, with the creeping death kind of aspect to it. But there is a lot of nothing.
Yeah, I think that's where it changes for me, is when we get that invasion thing. Oh, it's that again. It feels like the third or fourth time we've seen that. It seems like a bit of an easy cop-out to get your guy out of that situation. I don't know. I mean, Smith is in a bit of a cleft stick here because he's writing for the pulps. So he knows it's got to be snappy. The ending has to be a bit snappy, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you got to stick in that little Comte Cruel ending, the little twist at the end, the Twilight Zone thing, which, when you think about it, when you look at the story, is fairly obvious as well. It's not a big surprise. But it is extremely well written. And again, there's some great sentences and paragraphs in there. And in the hands of anyone else but Smith, it would have been quite a mundane story, I think.
No, I agree. I mean, I actually think it's a really good story, but I think the idea is better than the execution, which is unusual for Smith.
Yeah. You just wonder if this had been the sort of thing where if he had been paid properly and had the, I don't want to say luxury, because it's not a luxury, you earn it, but if he had the luxury of being able to sit down and write a novel or a novella, this could have been like a House on the Borderlands or something like that.
Indeed, yeah. If you'd have got a chance to really let the sort of concepts breathe a little bit. Because, yeah, obviously, I mean, that is a problem with short stories. It's a problem that I've encountered throughout my entire writing career. Bloody word counts. You know as well as I do that I can't stick to them. And you get the impression that Smith is exactly the same boat, right? Because, you've got a certain amount of words to do it. Because, as we've seen, longer stories are a lot harder sell.
Oh, totally. Because, in today, even more so, I saw a thing just last week, 1,000 words. That's not a story. That's not a story. I'm sorry, but that's not any more than a 30-second clip is a song.
Oh, no.
Unless it's the Residents, I'll make an exception for them. Or one or two other people.
Yeah. Lawnmower death.
So, there is that. But I think it depends what sort of writer you are and what you're writing for. And I think Smith and Lovecraft and Howard, really, to an extent, were in that strange position of writing for the pulps, which want introduce your heroes, something weird happens, fist fight, someone gets shot, twist ending.
Mm-hmm.
That's your 5 things, right? A bit weird, a bit actiony. Oh, he's a werewolf. Oh my God. The end.
Yeah.
Now, they could all do that, but they're all looking to explore themes way beyond that remit. Barbarism versus civilization. What would happen if you went to an alien planet? What would it really be like? Imagine there were these entities that were other to us. How would we interact with them? These are big themes, but they're restricted to this, 5,000 words. Some of the Lovecraft stories, it surprised me when we go back and look at them, just how short they are. From Beyond's like 4 pages or something.
Yeah. I mean, because this is something that, because a lot of my early works, I was writing 4 submissions. So you got your word count, you got your brief, and I was never fully happy with any of them stories, because it was like, I want to go off on a tangent here, or because the way I write, I'm not a plotter. So I just start writing, and then my brain's going, go off down there, and I can't, because I've got this wall, which is the brief and the word count. So when I later want to put them in collections, pretty much without exception, they all end up growing by 3,000 words.
You rewrite.
Yeah. They're not reprints, they're rewrites. It's a totally different thing. And so I wonder, is that frustration of the artist thing again, isn't it?
Well, it's exactly that, as we have in this story, the commercial versus the artistic, the recurring theme again.
I've got here, it's actually in the volume we're going off. It's an excerpt of a letter that Smith wrote to a guy called Lester Anderson, who was a San Francisco Bay Area fan, who he corresponded with. And he's talking about this, and you get that frustration. You get that for the frustration of the artist. The funny part of this is that this tale is about 100 times closer to genuine reality in conveying the problematic sensations of an interplanetary traveler than the usual tales dealing with such themes. Oh, well, what's the use?
There you go. There it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
There was no other outlet for this type of fiction at the time, as far as I could see. And I suppose we have to be grateful in that sense that there at least was that. If you hadn't had the pulps, where would these guys and women, where would they have been printed? They're not going to be put in Reader's Digest, are they?
No, I mean, you occasionally got them in local journals, but those are pretty much, without exception, lost to time.
Yeah.
You occasionally see like copies of the Auburn Journal with a Smith poem in going for like thousands of dollars on eBay, but even then you probably get it as a bloody photocopy. It's but a lot of that stuff, because when we've been looking at this, I always try and find the original publication to see if there's any correspondence and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of them just gone.
Yeah,
some of them, like especially the poetry journals, you can't even find like listings for them or anything.
And I mean, the whole pulp thing itself, as we said, it's ephemeral. You read it on the way to work, you read it on the way back from work, you sling it in the bin when you get home, isn't that really?
Yeah.
That was their worth. No one was binding them and putting them on the shelf. Well, maybe 1 or 2 people were, but by and large, I imagine the sort of things that are found in the attic in a box. Like I've got all my 40 times, I've got 4 boxes of 40 times in the shed.
Oh yeah,
that sort of
I've got my like Doctor Who magazine going back to the 80s. I stopped getting it a while ago, but I've got like all the way through the wilderness years and the late 80s and all that. That's all boxed up.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what I'm ever going to do with it, but it's there if I want it.
Even that, did you even have that back in the day? I wonder, was there that amount of, what you call it, affection, I suppose, attached to these? I wonder. I don't know.
I guess there must have been, because if you go on the Internet Archive, there is pretty much scans of every single issue of Weird Tales. Right. So somebody had to have collected them at some point to have scanned them in. But a lot of the other pulps are harder to find. Weird Tales, you see, is a bit of an exception. You can occasionally track down like PDF scans of like amazing tales and wonder stories, but
spicy.
Yeah, but some of the lesser known ones, not so much. So they probably are literally pulp. They probably have just been pulped.
Interesting. I just wanted to finish on the letters as usual. We turn to Dawnwood Spire and Lonely Hill for just a couple of bits here. That letter you quoted earlier between Smith and HPL, because I have to, at every opportunity, do this. I just wanted to read the return address on that one. So it's dated 24th to the 30th of October 1930. For Smith, it's actually quite a long letter. That takes up about 5 or 6 pages in the book, which is usually the Lovecraft length. But anyway, the return address is: in the world Sarkolosh at the dawn of the red sun and the setting of the green. So fairly restrained for one of the return addresses, but nice nonetheless. And yeah, we'll dip into this at some point, but there's talk about Sarthogua, there's talking about realism in stories, and then we get onto that whole section you read out there about this idea of human perception on an alien planet. But this is something that Lovecraft had brought up quite a bit earlier. This is in a letter from 1929, and the return address is just 10 Barnes Street, Providence, I'm afraid. So nothing that exciting there. But we get this. About that interplanetary idea of mine, it would begin as a dream phenomenon, creeping on the victim in the form of recurrent nightmares, as a result of his concentration of mind on some dim transgalactic world. Eventually, it would enmesh him totally, leaving his body to vegetate in a coma in some madhouse, while his mind roamed desolate and unbodied, forever above the half-litten stones of an eon-dead civilization of alien things on a world that was in decay before the solar system evolved from its primal nebula. I doubt if I'd handle it as a fantasy so much as a stark, macabre bit of quasi-realism. I would try to achieve what all other interplanetary writers blithely and deliberately reject, namely the sense of awesome, utter, and almost mind-unhinging tremendousness implicit in the very notion of transportation to another world, either in body or in mind. Virtually all writers wholly miss this point to a degree I cannot but regard as ludicrous. In cold realistic fact, any man with half an imagination would undergo a frightful mental shock at the mere idea of any contact with a planet other than this. This feeling would be the central element of any interplanetary story of mine. Indeed, the whole thing would be more of a psychological study than an adventurous narrative, more a Poe effect than an H.G. Wells or Jules Verne effect. And Smith responded to this a couple of weeks later. Your idea for an interplanetary story is great. Of course, transportation to an alien world would be an experience of the utmost terror and strangeness for human nerves, and the probable result would be delirium and madness. I hinted at this in The Monster, where Visaf Mal had to keep Alvor under the influence of a drug so that he wouldn't break down. So, I don't know if that idea originally came from Lovecraft, but it was, as we often find these two, they're surfing the same wave, aren't they? There's this nice synchronicity of ideas that come bubbling up.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Lovecraft ever actually did that. The only interplanetary thing I can think of is the Walls of Eryx.
I was just going to say, yeah, Walls of Eryx, one that springs to mind. Yeah.
I mean, we certainly get Dreamlands and all that kind of thing, but that's the only story that takes place on an actual other planet that I can think of. I suppose we get a bit of stuff on the moon, don't we? We get the fight, the moon cats and the squamous things.
Squamous things, yes. Squamous things. I don't know why I said that like Sean Connery, but splendid squamous things, Wish Money Penny.
James Bond meets the Lovecraft mythos. Well, Charles Stross.
Yeah, I was going to say Charles Stross or even David Conyers.
Yeah. Oh, yes. So there we go, a star change. What do you think, dear listener? Do you agree with our assessment? Very well written, but a little bit lacking in plot, perhaps. And again, down to the restrictions put upon Smith at the time. But do let us know your thoughts. Speaking of which, we've had a couple of thoughts come floating in across the ether.
Indeed, we have. Yeah. The first one that comes from Patreon and is from A.T. Johnson. Man, oh man, you boys, my soul brothers from other mothers. Thank you. Summer of '69 hilarity. I can only pray to Zorakwe that Brian Adams is hip enough to dig this. Is he even still alive, or is he already a necrocycle himself? Yes, thank you. That was obviously my rewriting of the Summer of '69 in the previous episode.
Yes. Back to 1369, wasn't it?
Yes, indeed.
I was reading that as I was trying to cross popsicle with that.
Yes.
I don't know how you pronounce that. AT, write it again and tell us how to pronounce that.
Necrosical?
Necrosical. I think that's it. Necrosical.
Necrosical. I like that.
Gotta be. I sort of think you're buying in a sort of goth ice cream shop, isn't it? Necrosical.
How about a death metal band? There's got to be a death metal band called Necrosical.
On there. And we also got a message came in via YouTube from Clay Story Sculptor. Long-time follower of the Cracking podcast, Clark Ashton Smith is a legend, a wizard worthy of a pilgrimage. Nice work in sharing CAS's works with others and helping form the Innsmouth Literary Festival. I am sculpting some stories of HPL, CAS, and other mythologies which may be up your weird art alley. Thank you for that. Yes, I've had a quick look on the site. Clay Story Sculptor is literally doing that, making clay sculpts of various myths. And I think there's a bit of Lovecraftian and Smithian stuff coming in on there. So we'll put the link up to that channel below. Ooh. Thank you very much. And yes, a wizard worthy of a pilgrimage.
Absolutely.
Well, obviously there's that Auburn convention coming up, but Niels does organise tours of Auburn as well at other times during the year. If you follow his link in the notes below, you can get in touch with him. You can find out about those as well. I think that's a bucket list, isn't it, for us, that one?
Absolutely. Now, something else that should happen. This needs to happen. And if I have anything to do with the world, it will happen. You know, you go to these grand stately homes or even botanical gardens or even some municipal parks, right? You get sculpture gardens, right? What I want to see towards the trees in the dark, shadowy corners is Weird Art Alley.
Oh,
that's what I want to see. You know, it's that final line there, which may be up your Weird Art Alley. I want to see Weird Art Alleys turning up in places, right? Weird sculptures of tentacular horrors in public parks. That's what I want.
That's nice. That'd be a good name for an exhibition, wouldn't it? Weird Art Alley.
Wouldn't it? Yeah.
Now, in a funny way, actually, that does bring something back to mind. In putting together the ILF, it is something we discussed at some point. We'd love to have some sort of gallery or display there of artwork. It's not possible in the venue we've got at the moment because we're using pretty much all the rooms we can. It's really just a question of finding the correct venue and place and everything else, and being able to extend out to 2 or 3 days. Then we could, more filmings, more gaming. And I think a Weird Art Alley gallery would be something. I was thinking a vision on now. We give a prize for all those we show, but you just have to be sane enough to collect it. It's drawn from the life.
Yes. What was that show you used to get, that nun who used to go around pointing out the willies on sculptures?
Oh, my word.
Yeah, do you remember?
Sister something. I know who you mean.
Yeah. That's what I want to see turn up in a Weird Art Alley. Oh, look at the suckers on that.
Check out the tentacles.
Exactly. Brilliant.
Oh dear. See, we always manage to drag it down, don't we? But, it's all in the best possible taste. All right. Thanks very much for joining us today, folks. As always, do let us know your thoughts. And, probably some pronunciations there that might be a bit questionable, but that's half of the course with us. As we say, we're not scholars, we're just fans.
Absolutely.
What do we have lined up next time, sir?
Next time we have a classic. It's The Disinterment of Venus.
Oh, that's a favourite. That's a favourite. This was amongst the first Smith stories I ever read, this one. And
same in one of the Panther books.
Yeah. It certainly stayed with me. Yeah, back to Averoyne, right? The naughty monks.
Indeed. the naughty monks with their naughty parchments.
Marvellous. Do join us for that. I just want to give a big shout out and thanks to all our supporters and patrons, of course. And by the way, patrons, if you ever feel like doing a reading for us for one of the episodes, or if you'd like to come and join us discussing one of the stories, then do drop us a line. We'd love to have you involved in the show. And if you'd like to join our patrons in supporting the show, please check out our Patreon site. As always, when you sign up, you get access to Strange Shadows bonus content, IBC bonus content, free entry to the Innsmouth Literary Festival. Plus, if you can't make it along, we're going to be sending out recordings of all the panels and a copy of Innsmouth News. The summer edition just went out last week with quite a long feature on George Sterling, Smith's poetic mentor. That was an interesting one to research. That there was a lot of stuff I never knew about him.
Oh yeah, interesting chap, isn't he?
Yeah. So, and there's quite a lot of information on him, well, because he was very well known at the time. So I was thinking perhaps we could do a bonus episode on him at some point in the future.
I'd like to extend that to just the Sterling Circle, because I'd like to delve into the letters with Samuel Loveman as well, because some of that is really interesting stuff, but not at all linked to Smith's fiction. So that'd be a nice place to do that.
Yeah, perhaps as a little run or something like that, as an extra, a mid-season thing or something.
Yeah.
Excellent. So thanks again, folks. With that, it's goodbye from me, Rob Poynton.
And it's goodbye from me, Tim Mendees.